All right, we are here with St. John Bosco head football coach Jason Negro, talking about three Stanford recruits for the Braves, starting first with class of 18 defensive tackle Sal Spina. First of all, let's just talk about how his senior season's going.
Sal's coming off an injury from last year, so, he's actually this week going to be getting his first time, so we're really excited about that. Breaking him back into the lineup. Sal's a two-way guy for us, plays a little bit of D-tackle, and he's athletic enough, so we're going to play him at some tight end this year. So we're really excited about that as a senior. The biggest thing with Sal is kind of getting his conditioning up, getting him ready to go. He's a tremendous football player. He's one of the few football players that ever played in our program as a freshman at the varsity level.
Wow.
And started at tight end for us as a freshman in the CIF final game. So he's got a lot of experience, a lot of, abilities on both sides of the football, and we're going to be a better team as a result of getting him back in the lineup.
So talk about the evolution of the position change. When did that idea come up? How did it come up? And how has that process been for him?
Well, he's so versatile. We're a single back team, so we don't play with a fullback. But what we do with our tight ends is like an H-back position. So it's kind of a hybrid tight end / fullback kid. So he's got really good hands. He's incredibly athletic for a big guy who weighs is what he does. And, he's got a lot of versatility. So when we have the opportunity to play him on the defensive line, because he's so disruptive, he's got really good hands, he's got low center of gravity. He has the ability to, play against double teams, or he can rush the passer from the perimeter. So again, because of his versatility, we're able to play him either offensively or defensively, wherever is best fit at that particular time. So as long as he can continue to do that and he has the stamina, we're going to continue to play him on both sides when we can.
And just talk about his responsibilities on defense. Does he have one gap, two gap responsibilities? How do you guys like to use him?
It depends on what front we're in. We have to be so multiple and so versatile because of the types of offenses we play during the course of a season. I think we talked about a little bit about that the other night. So he's got to be versatile. He's got to be able to play on the inside in a run-stopping type position and occupy a gap and sit in it and not allow double teams to get to the next level. Or he needs to be able to play on the perimeter on the edge and be able to come off and rush the passer and use some pass rush moves and try to contain a quarterback that might even be athletic and kind of an athlete back there instead of more so of a quarterback. So again, it goes back to his versatility and whatever we need him to do, whether it's, like I said, occupy that double team or come off the edge and play in the pass rush game, he's able to do that.
And so a guy with that kind of profile, it sounds like the injury may have had a bigger role in where he is in terms of his recruitment, because a player of this caliber doesn't seem like a guy who this late should still be around or still be considering what his options are. Is that safe to say that kind of slowed things down?
I think so. I think any time that you have a significant injury at the high school level, some colleges are always leery of that, how that happens, and it's unfortunate, but he's really been diligent. He's got, he has the opportunity to go to some of the best doctors and some of the best therapists in order to get him back into position to be able to play. He's really hasn't missed a step in terms of his speed. He hasn't missed a step in terms of his flexibility or his versatility. We just chose as a program and as a family to kind of take it slow going into a senior year. He's got quite the academic, workload as well. So we want to make sure we manage it correctly and manage it properly. And, and I think by saying that, it's really important for us to understand that, there's a lot more to Sal just as a high school player and, going into college. But I think the colleges that really understand and really know about his abilities, certainly know. And I know Stanford's right there, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to display his talents over the next, hopefully 10 weeks or so to get him a chance to even get recruited, from a higher standpoint from them.
And obviously it goes way beyond the field for Stanford, a little bit more so, I think, safe to say, than a lot of the other schools. So how does he profile to you as a Stanford student athlete?
I think, from my standpoint and from speaking from the outside, of course, I'm not on the inside and I'm not part of Coach Shaw's staff. But I will say this, from what Stanford looks for in an athlete and of the recruitable kids that they have had in our program in the past, he's the ultimate Stanford athlete, without question. I mean, he's got it all, encompasses it. And the number one thing is that's where he wants to be. It's his number one school. It's his number one choice. If he had the opportunity to go play there, to go study there, to go be a Stanford Cardinal, that's exactly what he would want to do. So, provided the opportunity, if he is given one, to be part of that great institution, without question, we would be fully in support of that, and that's something I think would be a dream come true for that young man.
So on the field, obviously, number one thing is just getting some film together,
Sure.
getting on the field, playing out his season. I think you've got no shortage of confidence in him.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you want to see him grow as a football player this season between now and the time it's time to go play in college?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I want to see how disruptive he can be. Especially on the defensive side of the ball, I think he is more than capable of being able to be super disruptive and explosive. I think if you can show that, and you could see how what he brings to the table in terms of that part of his game is going to be very, very beneficial for him. I know Stanford's an elite group, and they go after the very, very, very small group of individuals across the country that they could come in and get them actually to be a part of their program. And I without question, I think Sal is that guy. And I think if they continue to really evaluate him on the film that's going to be upcoming, they're going to see that he's going to factor right into their plans.
And then just one last thing on Sal. Obviously, Stanford and everyone's kind of interested beyond just the guy in the helmet and in the pads. What is something just as a person that you appreciate about him that outsiders might not know about?
I think the biggest thing is his commitment to our program and commitment to our school. He's the exact kid that you want to be a part of your program, just from a standpoint of he's got great character, from a morality standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, just the type of kid he is and what he brings to our school is just so uplifting. Even through the injury, he's always there. He's always behind his teammates. He's supportive. He's traveled on our travel games with us. Even when it's so frustrating to be in his shoes, to have to be able to stand there and just be a, kind of a glorified cheerleader, he's more than willing to do that. He speaks up when he has to. He's in films. He's in the weight room. He does all the things that you expect a player of his caliber to do during an injury, and I think that really goes a long ways, and it's garnered a lot of respect from our program, not only the coaches but also the players. See how diligent he is and how much it means to him, and so I think that's what has been his biggest asset to our program during this time.
All right. Well, from a senior, now we kind of talk about a couple of the younger guys, and let's talk about Colby Bowman. He's a junior, class of 19. So the first thing I want to ask you is just, with guys at that end of the timeline where their college ball is still a long way away, how do you manage that process, just with their expectations, who they are, and what you want them to do between now and the time they're in college?
Well, first of all, I think that one of the things that we stress to those guys that have these opportunities so early in their careers is the fact that they've reached already some of their personal goals. Their personal goals are try to obtain a scholarship offer from one of these universities, and understanding that it's just a verbal offer. It really doesn't mean a whole lot yet until you can continue to go out there and impress, and you can continue to go out there and produce when you're on the field. And not only for these guys that are Stanford recruits, but they also have to do it in the classroom and on the campus, as citizens. I mean, it takes a special individual to be able to go to that university, and they know they have a long road ahead of them, that they can't just sit back and just cruise, over the next, year and a half of their season and their academic workload. They have to make sure they maintain a very high level of success, a very high level of performance, both athletically and academically. So, we try to encourage them to continue to do that and understand that they're not just playing for the high school level, they're also playing to prepare themselves at the next level in college.
And with a program as strong as you guys, it's not a situation where one guy is ever going to get to be showcased. So I'm just kind of curious about, the trust you build with players, wide receivers, skill position guys, all the guys really who are thinking about the next level but are still part of this program.
Well, the number one thing we say is look at the products that we have sent out in the past. I mean, our past history speaks for itself. Our kids leave our program, they have high levels of success. They grind it out. They do everything that we expect them to do over a 4-year period of time. But then when they get to college, they play early. And I think that's one of the things that we really take a lot of pride in our program is when kids leave our program and they go to the college level, they're able to get on the field faster than a lot of other kids that come from, let's say, programs that aren't as adept as we are in terms of the preparation of our kids. And again, it's not just the athletic side of things. There's so much more when you leave St. John Bosco football program or St. John Bosco High School that you're prepared for the next level. And I think that's the rallying cry that we use as a program is, fellas, look at what we've done in the past. Look what we've been able to do for these particular individuals, and we list them. All these guys that are playing in the Pac-12, playing in the SEC, playing in the Mountain West conferences or wherever, private institutions, Notre Dame, places like that. And we go say, look at their level of success that they have had early in their career. They're not playing as juniors or seniors in college. They're playing as freshmen or redshirt freshmen, and they're getting a lot of experience early. And I think that if we continue to have guys go and succeed, that all of those things that they're doing at the high school level kind of speaks for itself.
And so, bringing it to Colby, how'd he grade out last Friday night?
He graded out, probably in the A- to B plus range. There's a lot of things that he could continue to work on. He had a catchable ball that we felt, early in the second quarter that he didn't make on a curl route. Kind of mistimed his jump. It was a difficult ball, but I think that, a guy of his level should be more than capable of making that type of play, and he agreed. But in terms of his blocking, he did a really good job of blocking. He's a physical guy on the perimeter. He has to continue to run good routes and continue to produce when we need him to produce. And he was playing against some really talented secondary guys from Chaminade. So for him to be able to keep performing at a high level and do some of those things is what our expectations are. I think he might have pressed a little bit because Stanford was in attendance. Coach Shaw's there. It's intimidating for a young guy. You're trying to maybe overplay a little bit or overproduce, and I think sometimes that gets in the way of just naturally going out there and playing. But overall, I think he had a pretty good game, and and it all depends. I mean, sometimes people are going to take away some of the best things that you do and force you into something differently. And as a wide receiver, I think that happens at times.
So is there a highlight or just kind of a moment in your mind that sticks out, maybe a game? It's early in this season, obviously, but at some point that you can think of, okay, I can see that Colby's a next level guy. Just a play, a game, just something you can kind of remember where there was a corner turn for this guy.
Yeah, I think it was early in the spring. He was competing, and we have a really good secondary, and all guys in our secondary are moving on to the next level, and they all carry Division I offers. I mean, one's got a UCLA commit, one is an Ohio State commit. And it was early in the spring, leading into, obviously, his junior year, so he was still just a sophomore. But him in the spring being able to go out and compete in one-on-one drills and go out there and be able to run routes and get open and be physical and body up against some of these guys really kind of turned our heads and said, man, this guy is next level. And I think the other thing that really proved that was when he went up to Stanford and went up to the camp and was able to produce against some of the better high school kids in the country and be able to have a lot of success and be able to stretch the field vertically or even make good releases off of a line of scrimmage against really talented corners that are pressing him. For a big guy, that's tough to do. And when he was able to do that against some of the elite corners and defensive backs, whether it be here at camps, I think that's what really turned our heads.
Did he come back from Stanford a different guy in your mind?
I think so. I think he came back a little bit more confident. I think he came back and felt really good about his performance because camps can do one of two things. They could kind of verify that you are the guy that you say that you are, or it could eliminate you. And I think when he left there, it was a validation and a verification that he can play at that level. He got a lot of positive feedback from the Stanford coaching staff, and I think that was something that kind of elevated him into the summer and fall camp and is going to continue to elevate him through this junior year.
So, one of the things that you tend to hear a lot when you're covering Stanford recruits is just obviously what a great kid the kid is. And we've, it's not a coincidence, obviously.
Sure.
Stanford kind of looks for that,
Sure.
and you've talked about that yourself. But what makes Colby in your mind? What's something that you really like about him just as a person?
Well, I think you could coach him hard. That's one of the things I really like about him. He's not too proud. He doesn't get upset when you criticize, something that he's doing. He doesn't pout and mope. When you get on him hard about something, because he understands that we're trying to make him better. He understands that we are trying to be able to get him to a level to where he's going to be successful, not only at the high school level, but at college. And I think it ultimately comes down to parenting. These three kids that we're going to be talking about today, they all have a common theme, and they have really good parents. They're behind them. They support them. They allow us to do our jobs as coaches. And that's very rare in this day and age of the high school athlete. And I think the kids that are Stanford, material or Stanford, quality, they all kind of possess that same quality in terms of the parenting at home is very much in alignment with what we're trying to accomplish here at the school, and we just become an extension of what they're trying to do at home. And I think that's the reason why, these guys are going to be successful here as well as at a school like Stanford.
All right. Well, we're talking with St. John Bosco head coach Jason Negro, and we're going to talk about the last of Stanford's 3 recruits here for the Braves, class of 19 defensive back Chris Steele. Now, It was really fun kind of on Friday because he got a few opportunities to line up against Michael Wilson, who is, of course, a Stanford commit from the class of 18.
Yep.
So how did Chris do on Friday looking at the film?
I think he did a really good job. He had one bad coverage where we busted a coverage and he came off on a route that he shouldn't have. And Wilson actually made a really good play and scored a touchdown on. And it was more of a blown coverage than actually a blown,
getting beat.
Getting beat or anything like that. So we didn't communicate real well. And I think ultimately sometimes, from the outsider looking on, you're like, oh man, that sure didn't look good. But I think if you really understood, kind of the nature of what happened during the play, you would kind of say, okay, well, that was more of a mental mistake from our defensive side of the ball rather than any kind of physical mistake. But one thing is like, I don't think, Wilson, he's a tremendous player. He's got a lot of talent, but I don't think he really had, other than the one, play. I think he had an early catch, and that wasn't against Chris early in the game.
Right.
But I think when we kind of made an adjustment and put Chris on him a little bit more full time, I think it was beneficial to us. We kind of held him at bay a little bit. We're not a big team in terms of flip-flopping our guys and trying to match people up. Right. We play one side or the other. Very similar to what they do at Seattle Seahawks with Richard Sherman. He plays on the left side or he plays on the right side. And we kind of do that here at Bosco as well. And we like our guys to be comfortable in the side at which they play. So very rarely do we have to match guys up. But in the second half, as you noticed, we did put Chris on Wilson. And I think he did a pretty good job. He kind of held him down, and he really didn't hurt us much, like I said, other than the one big play. But that was early in the ball game. And then once we make that adjustment, we were able to do some pretty good things defensively.
Now, are you guys able to play a little bit more sophisticated defense than you're going to see normal in high school? I mean, do you guys get into the pattern matching and stuff like that? Do you get to do some of that? Because there's not that much time for you guys to practice compared to college teams and NFL teams. But do you get into that level of sophistication with them?
I think so. I think if you understood and knew what we did defensively from a schematic standpoint, you would see that we're super, technical in what we do. We have high levels of scheme that we try to come up with each and every week to be able to try to combat against our opponents. And even though we don't have the amount of time, I think the fact that we have really good, savvy football players that are football smart, they're savvy, they understand what we're trying to accomplish, and they're super talented in terms of their preparation, that it allows us to be a little bit more sophisticated than I think you would expect. And again, that's totally goes to the benefits that we have as a coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball. A really talented group of individuals, and then you have to have kids that are receptive to this, and I think they do a really good job of being open, and I think that they do a really good job of understanding what we're trying to accomplish and how much work they have to do outside of the meeting rooms, outside of being on the field. When their homework's done, they got to dive into the film work, and they have to kind of do a lot of those things on their own. And it's a trust thing, and I think we, as a staff, trust our kids to do it. And, the more that we can trust them and the more that they're able to show us that they can absorb and they can kind of hold on to these concepts, the more we're going to be able to implement.
And is that part of what gets them on the field as collegiate athletes?
Without
so
question.
Early, just the fact that you guys are throwing stuff at them that is a little bit more than what the normal high school players
100% accurate in that statement. I mean, that's one of the things that we talk and we constantly are preaching to not only the players but to our parents. And they ask, if you're wondering why we're grinding on these guys so hard, or why do we have such high expectations in terms of the film work or the preparation, or the off-season stuff and all the things that we're trying to accomplish, why are we doing that? And most of the time it's because we want to prepare them not only for this level. We know that they're talented enough. We know that they have obtained their unofficial offers, and their verbal offers. But it's not about what you do now in high school. It's how you're going to perform in college. that we're really focused on. So I think that if we continue to spread that message to our kids and to the parents, and the kids that leave our program continue to have high level success early on in their careers, it just validates what we're doing is the right thing. So we have complete buy-in, I think, from our parents as well as the kids in terms of this is what we're trying to accomplish. All you have to do is buy into it, and you're going to, be able to receive a bunch of, preparation type situations that are going to get you ready for that next level. And it's really been nice the way it's worked out for us.
So, as a defensive back, it's not hard to find the highlights, right? It's
Sure.
kind of it's a lot easier than, say, for Sal, who
Sure.
you kind of really have to go back to the
Yeah.
film to say how well he did.
Yeah.
Can you point to kind of a game or a moment that reflected, oh, Chris had done his homework? We can see, you know what I mean? Like, is there something you could see, or maybe just a stretch in his career where, okay, we can see now the light bulb's on, and he's doing that kind of work on his own?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to our first game that he played as a sophomore. He was on a freshman team, but then our sophomore year, we played our first game, which is in the 2016 season in Cincinnati, Ohio, against St. Xavier, one of the, better parochial schools in the Midwest. They ended up winning the state title, but Chris started, the game. We had a couple older kids that were starting in the secondary, and Chris had to get his start on special teams, which, like a lot of kids will have to do at the college level. Early in their career as freshmen or even redshirt freshmen, they start at special teams. And from that game, to see how he was able to produce and how he was able to make plays at the special teams, gave us the confidence as a coaching staff that this guy can handle playing in the secondary at such a high level. So I think he really took that to heart. He really embraced the opportunities that he got early on, and he gained our trust as a staff and progressively got more and more playing time as the season went on. And I knew that moment right there, this kid's going to be super successful in college as well, just because his willingness to be able to, be unselfish, do the things that we need and coach him to do, and then ultimately he's going to be able to produce at a high level. So he's a very unique kid in that way.
That he took special teams seriously.
100%.
That's not a given for a lot of players.
Not a lot. A lot of
that's
the kids,
a chore for a lot of guys.
Yeah, a lot of kids think that they're above it, but that's not the way that he approached it. And it's great because now, even as a junior, he plays on many of our special teams. He looks at it as an opportunity to get better. He looks at it as an opportunity to be able to make our team better, which is ultimately what we're trying to accomplish as a coaching staff and the message that we're trying to teach these guys. And then he also knows that when he gets to college, that's probably where he's going to get on the field first. I mean, if you look at great guys, even at college level, like just take a look at Adoree Jackson. Adoree Jackson was amazing at USC and was an amazing high school football player at Sarah, right down the street from us. But you look at where his highlights were yesterday in the NFL games, it was on special teams. And you look at that and the impact that which he had. That just shows you that the kid cares and he just wants to be a football player. And I think Chris really fits into that same mold.
And so, just to finish off here on Chris, what makes him off the field? Just the person that he is. What do you appreciate the most?
Again, I think it goes back to parenting. I think he's got a really good set of parents. His mom and dad really believe in the fact that you're developing a young man, not just a young athlete. And I think that if you continue to stress academics, you stress, doing the best job that you possibly can do on the football field when you're given the opportunities that you're given, as well as, just the type of human being that you're becoming and the way that you are in our community. And I think Chris has a really good home background that allows him to be able to do that. And then the family also lets us be an extension of themselves, and they let us coach him hard. We have high expectations for him. We're very hypercritical on him and his performance. And he absorbs that and he takes it really well. So as long as he continues to do that and they continue to allow us to do our jobs, he's going to be successful.
All right, that's St. John Bosco head coach Jason Negro talking about Stanford recruits Sal Spina, Colby Bowman, and Chris Steele.